So good. Hello, hello everyone. Thanks for Audrey's invite. Today I will do some brief introduction on how to build a crypto startup based on my experience. So first for myself, right? I'm YQ, founder of Allier. I've been in crypto since sort of like 2015 when I was doing my PhD in US, Singapore. At that time, I was doing a lot of research on consensus protocols, peer-to-peer networks, and especially doing a lot of research around sharding and scaling Ethereum, right? And after that, I sort of working with a friend for this Zilliqa, it's a sharding protocol. And later, I was also working with Gavin Wood, the other co-founder of Ethereum. And later on, since 2021, we started Allier. Basically, at that time, our vision was to create these application rollups for all the different protocols. And probably we are the first one to propose, like in the near future, we will have a lot of application rollups. And basically, all the major apps, we need to have a separate chain. And basically, we have a paradigm shift from this infra-centric thesis into this application-centric thesis. Basically, it's from fat protocol to fat application. But anyway, and right now, we sort of, as I mentioned at the opening, right? We already have this rollup as service providing all different rollup stacks, OP, Arbitrum, and all the different ZK rollups. And beyond that, we're also working closely with EigenLayer to provide this AVS for fast finality and all different this kind of verified services for protocols. And why I need to highlight this background is because like today I will roughly cover like if you want to build a protocol, right? What are the merits you need to have at the same time? Like if you want to build an infra protocol, right? I can share a little bit more. But if you want to build like sort of a application, right? Some other guys here probably they have better understanding. But I will also share my experience or learnings from my friends who are building great application like Pendo, it's Ravi, like so roughly I can just share my experience for the past 10 years. Like some of them you may feel like it's helpful, and some of them if you feel not that helpful, just let me know. So first, right, crypto or blockchain is quite different from the other industries. Since day one, like no matter you see the day one is from this invention of Bitcoin or it's day one of like sort of the midnight of Ethereum. It's basically, we have this concept called infrastructure. Like when we build some application in Web2, right? Typically, we just say we are building this mobile application or website, or no one is saying like, okay, let's build TCP/IP. But in crypto blockchain, we normally when we say like, okay, we are a company in crypto, people will say, okay, are you building an infrastructure or building an application? So that's a part I think it's very unique in crypto because like so far, even it's already over a decade for Ethereum, right? Our infrastructure somehow is still not perfect. You can see, right? The throughput not good enough. That's why we have L2. Latency is super high. Block time 12 seconds. We want some sub-second compared to Web2, and we also need to pay like $1 or some gas fee, right? Is it possible to just get rid of all this stuff? So that's why there's still a lot of room for us to improve, to build some infrastructure. And at the same time, since you already have a lot of infrastructures, for example, Ethereum, like Solana or Base, and you already have a lot of platform if you want to build applications on top of these infrastructures. So that's why, like in crypto, we have sort of different categories for you to choose. And normally, we like sort of have these two different divisions for you to see in. Like if you want to build like sort of in this infrastructure sector, right? Typically, it requires you have a super strong team like doing research on consensus protocols or like ZK or sometimes on it's kind of a new peer-to-peer network, right? The corresponding sort of protocols we have right now is like, for example, 803. They have new consensus protocols. And then like second is like improve the peer-to-peer network. The new one is like 00, and some other new protocols, they enhance the performance of existing protocols like Solana. And then for dApp, right, that's even broader sector for you to build. Like you can build social, game, AI, and also DeFi. But based on my experience right now, I think if you really want to build applications in a space, right, you probably really need to try DeFi. And DeFi is different from the previous DeFi protocols, like these DeFi stacks, right? Stablecoin, swap, lending protocol. Right now, you probably need to consider, okay, what are the new DeFi stacks you want to build, like perpetual, new stablecoin, and the new like sort of applications with the funding rate sort of arbitrage. And then the second thing is like, what kind of things you want to build? As I mentioned, right? We still have a lot of problems in infrastructure. We still have a lot of problems for applications. And when you build, right, are you trying to solve a problem we have right now, or you want to target a problem in the future? Here I give you one big example is ZK. So ZK, like typically we call ZK Snark or ZK Start, right? It was invented much earlier and previously in academia. Like no one really spent a lot of time on it because it's mainly for privacy. And until like sort of 6 years ago, like when we figure out like we need some new scaling solutions to build, right? For Ethereum, because at that time we were super frustrated by the progress of state sharding of Ethereum. So we tried to figure out some new ways to scale Ethereum. And then there was a GitHub page showing that, okay, we can build a ZK rollup for Ethereum. So the ZK here is not for zero knowledge proof, but it's mainly for the data compression it has. So that's why sometimes people really say, special researchers say that, okay, the ZK in crypto is not ZK because there is no privacy. We should call it not ZK rollup, but sort of a Snark rollup or succinct like sort of rollup. But anyway, the point is like at that time, as you can see, right, ZK was not that mature, like back in 2019 or 2020. But we already got a bunch of companies, for example, Starware, ZK Sync, and some other ones, like for example, this Polygon acquired a few ZK companies, right? And Scroll, they are trying to build the ZK EVM. At that time, we can't say they were building something for today at that time. It's basically for future. Like for example, most of the ZK rollups or protocol, they launched at midnight either last year or like sort of this year. But because they were built for future at that time, and then a lot of VCs want to put money into them because they feel like it can be big at that time. And I think for Starware or Starknight, their last private round valuation was around like $8 billion, but still people put money into it because people believe like, okay, this thing can be big for the future. So that's something, as I mentioned here, right? If you build something for the future, like you can have higher upside if it can take off. But at the same time, you know, right, you won't really see, okay, like within 1 or 2 years, it may not you may not even have the product. And then if you build something for today, as I mentioned, right, for the applications, we need the new DeFi, perpetual, and also this new application around this arbitrage, all this stuff, right? The good thing is, at least, if you can find there's a demand today, you can generate decent revenue. You can have a product market fit, you can generate decent revenue. But the problem is like, because it's too obvious for VCs to value your product, they can check your revenue, they can check your DAU, and then they will give you a fair valuation. So in that case, as you can see, right, you can generate revenue, but at the same time, the valuation or the sort of the picture you paint for the VCs or what kind of picture they recognize may not be as big as the one you build for the future. But that's sort of like double-edged sword, right? And basically, if you build for today and you already have product market fit, at least you can have something people can use right now. But if you build for the future, it's basically you need to spend long time together with your team to build this super tough like sort of technology. And then after that, another question you need to ask yourself is like, what kind of, so what you want to aim for? It's sometimes like people complain that the narrative play is unique in crypto, and in other industry, they don't have the narrative play. Like for example, previously people say that ZK was a meme, and basically it's not doable, feasible like a few years ago. And then people say that all the VC's investment thesis are on this kind of narrative. And so that's why there's a difference, right? Sometimes like a lot of projects you can see, they don't have like sort of product market fit, but they have this product narrative fit. Like sometimes like people like Vitalik saying, okay, we need to build ZK, we need to build privacy, we need to build like sort of homomorphic encryption product, and then you build for that. But do you think it really has a product market fit? Sometimes it doesn't. And so that kind of product you build is basically you're building this product narrative fit. You get my point, right? And typically if you look at some top VCs, they will show you, okay, what their investment thesis and what are the categories they want to focus on, right? The problem is like a lot of the crypto VCs, sometimes they are super high level. They give you say, okay, let's build this AI like A16Z saying that, okay, we feel like these are the good sort of topics we want to put money in, like this AI, privacy, and sometimes like also ZK, right? But if you look deep into this kind of super long blog post, you won't see like, okay, if we build on this direction, right? So what kind of concrete products or applications we build like users or retailers can directly use? Sometimes it's very unclear. And even the VC, they don't know. Because like so far, what's the best product market for ZK protocol? I think it's still ZK rollup, right? But beyond that, like if we check out like sort of the retail application, any consumer application we have using ZK is zero. Yeah, so that's a difference. Like when you think about like you want to aim for, right? I mean, either it's a product narrative fit, probably you just want to fulfill the dream of some KOL or dream of some VC so you can get their money. So in that case, your target is to really to build something for the narrative. And then roughly you can see you can get the money or the investment from these VCs. But beyond that, like in the end, you still have to think about like what kind of product market fit applications or products I can deliver. The other thing is the product market fit. It's also like echo to the previous slide, right? It's sort of like you build for today. You know some big problems we have, right? For example, this kind of liquidity fragmentation, the bridge interoperability problems across different chains and rollups. Even we have layer 0, even we have wormhole, even we have, like for example, the Chainlink CCIP. It's not good enough. It's not smooth enough. And we have so many wallets, right? But none of them really make the user experience so seamless like all the Web2 user can use. These are all like sort of the big problem we have right now. We don't have sort of very good application. And sometimes you can see, right? If you're deep into DeFi or trading, you know, like sometimes you want to do the arbitrage between CX and DX. Can build some tools and like the users or trader to use. If you have the tool, right? I think these people glad to pay you some money. So these are all like sort of applications you can build for. It has a real demand, and basically you need to figure out like, okay, which direction you want to target, and it's sometimes quite different, as I mentioned, right? You build like sort of ZK or some like big dream stuff, and sometimes it doesn't have the product market fit in the market right now. But another thing you need to consider, these narratives sometimes like it can change dramatically. Like a few years ago, ZK, but right now people don't really want to use ZK, or like sort of the narrative is gone. Like restaking, like last year or 2 years ago, pretty hot, but then right now, like as we can see, right, even Eigen pivot from this restaking to Eigen Cloud. So the narrative can change. So in that case, if you really build your stuff, your company for the narrative, so if the narrative changes, what can you do? And then after that, you need to position your product. So no matter like what kind of products or like company you build, right? So in the end, you need to find this selling point, the best selling point. And sometimes like the selling point is not just about like how you easily convince the other guy, your client to buy it. Sometimes it's just like when you do social or BD, you need probably just one sentence or a few words to explain to them in layman words so they can quickly understand. Even better, if you can really have a selling point and make people wow, that would be great. One example is Chainlink, right? So in the early days, if you check out the Chainlink website, it's pretty clear. They want to connect like sort of the real world to the blockchain. What you need to do is basically an Oracle, right? So then like everyone knows like what kind of things you build. You just say Oracle, and people roughly know like, or you just link the real world to the sort of the virtual world. This is something like you can quickly get, not just right now, but even like sort of 7 or 8 years ago. Beyond that, like right now, I feel like Chainlink or Oracle not cool enough. But at that time, you would just it's sort of can be the backbone. Or at that time, they were saying like they are this TCP/IP of crypto or blockchain. Like most of Web2 people know TCP/IP. You can roughly map the concept in crypto into Web2. TCP/IP is super crucial to Web2, and then crypto, like if you are the TCP/IP, basically everyone has to use. So that's a main point. Like we want to make people feel like, okay, that's something I want to buy. That's something I want to use. And another thing is, for example, the all layer. Like at the beginning we sort of we try to sell this kind of rollup as service, and the problem is people don't understand what's rollup. And right now, like all you guys, like you're in Ethereum, you roughly know like rollup. But think about like 4 years ago, OP or Arbitrum, like all the rollups were not on midnight. We are selling this application rollup. It's pretty difficult because people don't understand. At that time, people complaining, okay, why you guys don't use Cosmos or Substrate or Avalanche, this subnet? People still have an impression like, okay, you guys want to launch a chain, you should launch a L1, something like that. So how you quickly explain, okay, we want to like sort of launch a better chain or better rollup? All the things change like sort of until like people roughly understand, okay, what kind of things, what kind of rollup is. Like sort of 2 or 3 years ago, people start to recognize, okay, rollup is L2. So in the early days, for us, if we want to quickly explain what we are building, we can't say it's a rollup as service. We can only say we are launching blockchains. So in that case, like people can quickly understand, okay, what the business you guys are doing. But at the same time, like how to make people wow. The sort of one-liner we use is basically we build this one-click dashboard. I mean, one-click sort of like a cloud, this kind of a roll-up launcher. So then people can map sort of all layer is basically like AWS for blockchain. So you just need to click a bunch of buttons and then you can launch a chain. Equivalent to you click a bunch of buttons, you launch an instance on AWS or GCP. So that's something you need to figure out, okay, what's the selling point of your product? For example, if you're building perpetual DEX, right? Web2 people don't understand what's a perpetual DEX. They probably don't understand what's a DEX. They don't understand what's a perpetual contract or perpetual like trading, right? So in that case, like you need to roughly explain to them, probably just say, okay, we are building a derivative exchange or something like that on chain. You need to convert your words into something they can understand. And beyond that, you also need to let them feel like you are different from, for example, Hyperliquid or something else. For example, you can say, we don't charge fees for Maker. Something unique. So immediately people can recognize, okay, you are different. You can't say, okay, our infrastructure is better than Hyperliquid. Our like sort of chain we are L2 hyperliquid L1. It's a pretty subtle because people don't understand what that means. If you directly say some feature difference, it will be much better than some underlying infrastructure difference. When you sell the product, or basically let people feel that there's something different. So after you figure out like all these ideas, right? For example, as I mentioned, right, you choose a sector, you choose like sort of you want to build a product market fit or product narrative fit. After that, you figure out your selling point. Either you probably need to talk to VCs and investors to pitch your idea, pitch your product, right? There's multiple ways. Like if you already have good connections, and the easiest way, like you can get intros to VC. And or the other way, if you don't have connections, you probably need to build your founder profile. That means like for some, these kind of DeFi people, right, they typically doing a lot of tweets, show their knowledge, to show people that they understand like their product or a specific sector very well. In the early days, for the Hyperliquid founder Jeff, right, he shared super long sort of tweet or posts to explain, okay, what's happening in the DeFi and what kind of things we need to build to fulfill the gap between what they have and what we need to target, right? And there's a bunch of like, right, these yappers, if they're building, like for example, Kaito's Yuhu, he was doing a lot of this social-fi explanation, engage with the community in the early days, and just to build this founder profile to show that, okay, we are building a very good protocol for this specific sector, and I know what we are building. That's very important. So after that, with a very good product, sometimes you don't need to reach out to like sort of VCs. VCs, on the other hand, will use their connections to reach out to you. But of course, like no matter each way, the second way, like basically that means you already have a good product. If for the first way is like if you already have the connection, sometimes you can do a very quick pitch. But the thing is, like I always recommend the pitch to one VC, you only have one chance. The first impression basically decides whether you will get the money or not. You only have one chance. Even these like sort of their GPs or the team are your brothers or your friends, super close friends, but you only have one chance. If you are late to the meeting, if your pitch was not good, if at that time like sort of your narrative or your product not good enough, you do the pitch, it's in their memo, and it's basically that's a done deal. And typically that happened probably for the first half a minute. And these VCs, they will recognize, because most of the time, like for example, I also help some VCs do DD. Because they saw too many these kind of pitches, and when you send out your doc send, when they see it, probably the first page, like already decides whether they will give you a rejection or acceptance. So this is super important. Don't think like you can do multiple times to one VC or one like sort of firm, right? You just treat the first time is last time. And by default, especially right now, the internal market condition not that good. I mean, typically most of VC don't put money into new project. So even tougher. But in general, you should treat all these pitches, you will just get no. And you need to figure out ways, the best ways like to do the pitch. Probably next time I can show my knowledge how to do a pitch. But this is super, super important. You just, as I mentioned, right, you have to think like you only have one chance. If that one chance doesn't work out, and basically there's no way. And another thing like this, VCs will chit chat to each other. If you got one yes, that means you will get a lot of yes. But if you get one no, that means probably you won't get another yes. So that's why like that's a part like you have to like practice and make sure like your first pitch can be a really good one. That's a part I'm quite different from the other founders. They always want to say you have a lot of chances, but in reality, you just have one chance. And like sometimes the chit chat, and if you get one no, basically all no. But if you get one yes, and you quickly like get all the allocations fulfilled. Yeah. And then another thing, I'm also quite different from the other founders is like about the valuation. I know some of you like probably the first time or like doing the startup. The problem is like some of you just want to raise as much money as possible, and if you like higher valuation will be better. But the reality is like basically, as I mentioned, one way is like this way. You want to do a super high valuation is like either you want the VCs to put the money, or you just let them. You just don't take the money. It's basically, for example, super high valuation, 500 mil or 1 billion. If you can't read that, you don't want to take the money. Or the other way is like you can raise multiple rounds from small to big and just make all the stakeholders care. My suggestion always like you should really do the second way. If you raise super high valuation, the problem is like it's very difficult for you to grow, and and you also have a super big burden because like in crypto the exit strategy is much easier than Web2. Like if you look at all the crypto companies, typically they can exit by issuing tokens within like sort of 2 or 3 years. It's much faster than IPO in Web2. And so in that case, you want to grow the company by like getting more like sort of these strategy investors. So in that case, it's better like you grow slower and you always have some buffer for the valuation to be up. So in that case, even the last round valuation you can get from the investors, and they can still have some upside. So then in the future, no matter like sort of you do the listing, and or sometimes you do this kind of extra round, right? These VCs are always glad to join again because there's some upside. If you give a super high valuation, they know that there's no upside. So that's pretty tough like for the future to grow. And beyond that, if you are really doing a token, right now most of our exchanges, they don't like these high valuation projects because like they know that the retailers couldn't make money. And then after that, right, what I'm thinking, like a sort of suggestion for you as a founder is that sometimes like we all have different personalities, right? One like, you know, right, some of them like probably you are super workaholic, right? You just want to build and shape. I know some of my friends, they barely sleep. I mean, they just want to shape and web coding and just deliver, right? But some of you probably just want to delegate the work. Like you're good at sort of fundraise, you raise enough money, and you just yap on Twitter and then just hire all the top tier like sort of talents, BD, tech, all the stuff. For that part, I just feel like it really depends on your personality and also expertise, right? So some of you are builders or developers, but some of you are basically good on the sales and BD. So in that case, you need to figure out, okay, what kind of things you want. But it's super important for you to find very good co-founders. If you're good at sort of tech stuff, you probably need to have a very solid sort of commercial co-founder. And on the other side, if you're really good at like sort of managing the companies or recruiting and also get talents into a team, probably you really need to figure out, okay, how you can onboard the most talented technical people. And the reality is, especially in crypto, the founder is upper bound. To be honest, I always feel like crypto industry is pretty tough because I mentioned, right, the narratives change almost every few months, and you probably the superstar for the past few months, but later on no one really care about you, and basically you have to pivot. So that's why, like, for a lot of my VC friends, they typically invest into the founder instead of the team or the project, because what they want is that the founder has to stay relevant in the industry. At the same time, he has to be persistent and can really spend time finding all the new directions. Either you do pivoting or you basically trying to ride on all different hypes, like years after years. So that's something, I mean, it's pretty unique in crypto, I would say, because like in Web2, you probably just build one app and you can always have constant user, right? But in crypto, especially for the project with this kind of narrative play, right? Quickly, they don't have their sort of hype anymore. So in that case, like there are two ways. One, like they can sit on their treasury. The second way, that the founder has to change or pivot to something else. So that's the part pretty tough, and basically you have to prepare that there's nothing you can build like you can always win, and you have to prepare like sort of you need to pivot from one thing to another thing, or even a lot of adding on new features. I give you some examples. Like one example is like sort of the centralized exchange like Binance, right? In the early days, we all know that centralized exchange doing this spot trading, and since 2017, they were the very first ones like really embrace the altcoins, and they list all. They were trying to be the first to list all the altcoins, and later there's some perpetual came out, right? They basically include the new feature, and we all know that for the past few years they will struggle due to like all different issues, right? It's legal issues and compliance issues, and even like the launchpad was not doing well because it's high FDV and low flow issues. But they keep like they kept like doing a lot of new things. If you look at this BNB chain, right? They did this Binance Alpha, they did the Binance Wallet. Even the Binance is sort of the number one exchange. They are still trying to innovate. They're still trying to do all these sort of new things. So that's one extreme case. The other extreme case is Vitalik. I mean the Ethereum. We all know that it's, since 2014 they started Ethereum, 2015 midnight, whatever, and then they constantly trying to do something new. In the early days, we all know that scalability is an issue, and basically we have this state sharding proposal from Vitalik, and spent a few years, it didn't work out. Then they try out this Plasma, the sidechain, and didn't play out. And then they try out this rollup, right? ZK rollup and optimistic rollup. Finally, OP Arbitrum this took off, and ZK rollup still okay right now. But as you can see, right, Ethereum or Ethereum Foundation downtime and no need to rush. But at the same time, if the timing comes, right, you really need to quickly sort of figure out and just do it. And beyond that, as I mentioned here, right, there's multiple ways to do this. Token economics. One is like, if you're doing these DeFi applications, probably you need to figure out, as I mentioned, right, it's a token economics expert. Because that requires a lot of efforts, like, for example, how you use your token to exchange users, like sort of assets, or sometimes you need to onboard them with some fees. It's not like sort of rocket science, because like even in Web2, we all use like sort of Uber, Grab, right? In the early days, like to capture new users, they will give you free coupons. In crypto, token airdrop is basically the free coupons we give to crypto users. But how you maximize the impact of these airdrop or tokens, right? That's basically, you need to figure out, like, it's not that simple. It's really case by case, and sometimes like it also based on like sort of the timing, and sometimes like exchanges want you to do this, and sometimes like they don't want you to do that. Beyond that, I still feel like no matter you are doing what kind of new application or protocols, you need to figure out like some revenue you can generate. No matter you're doing this kind of tech outsourcing work, or sometimes for ZK, or sometimes like you building application and you have a lot of retail user, you want them to stake or deposit their asset into a protocol so you can earn extra yield. No matter what kind of ways, I still feel like at this stage you need to really figure out like what kind of ways you can generate revenue. And once you can generate revenue, then at least it also can help you to figure out ways to raise the fund, and sometimes like can also help you to grow bigger, like in the near future. I show like so much like difference, right, compared to the non-crypto industry like Web2. But the thing is, like, crypto startup is still another startup, and so in the end, it's about like who you are responsible for, and at the same time, it's really about like who are the customers, the clients you want to serve, and it's also about like sort of, do you really want to build a great product, or do you really want to revolute the entire industry? Like in the early days, we have a lot of builders in crypto or blockchain space. People want to revolute the internet. Like we want to build Web3, right? Even right now, not many people talking about Web3. But previously, there's a lot of builders, they have the dream, sort of to revolute the internet. We can rebuild like sort of Google, Facebook, Uber, all this stuff, and with this blockchain technology. But I just feel like no matter what kind of these things, right, it's really like it's still startup. There's a lot of license we can learn just from this normal startup. But at the same time, just as I mentioned, right, there's so many advice and suggestions you can take. Just make sure like you can stay relevant in this space. And this final sort of advice, these bullet points, right? As I mentioned, crypto is moving very fast, and every day we have a lot of news, and every day we have a lot of new tech. Just read and learn, and sometimes if you feel like you can do more, you just do more. Always overdo. As a founder, you always need to be sort of exhausted or burn out, and just make sure like you can just really like sort of deliver something different. And beyond that, right, just try to figure out, like, for example, communication, build network, and all the other sort of merits you need to have as a founder, and regarding pitch and how to talk to your clients and how to do BD. All the things, I just feel like no matter you're a crypto startup founder or you're just a normal startup founder, right, you should really do this stuff. And there's one more thing. If it's before becoming like sort of before becoming like as a founder, I think you should be physically and also mentally healthy. So you need to be super powerful, I mean, physically. And so in that case, like even burnout, you can quickly recover. And also mentally healthy, I mean, it's basically because like you run the show, and if your team members and some of the sort of colleagues, they got like frustrated due to various reasons, right? For example, the narrative is not playing well, and then you have to be strong, and you have to make sure like at least you can like help them to change something and make everything different. And then so that's a part, as I mentioned, right? Because this place is moving so fast, and if we want to stay relevant, we probably need to constantly pivot. And sometimes we can always get frustrated, but we need to quickly recover and to move forward as fast as possible. So that's a part, as I mentioned, right? Apart from this, is like try your best to stay relevant in crypto. I think that's sort of the most tough stuff like in crypto you can do, but at the same time, and that's also the easiest stuff you can do in this space. Yeah, that's all about my session. I just, I just give you a bunch of these bullet points, and yeah, hope you can think more about these bullet points. And sometimes you probably don't understand like what I'm like sort of rambling about, but like when you really start to build a startup in different stage, right, you will start to figure out, okay, this guy is saying something useful. At the same time, if you need some extra support or help either from Ollie or from me, just reach out to me or from Audrey. And yeah, we are always glad to help everyone to become a very successful founder. Thank you.
In one of your slides, in the valuation slide,
Yeah.
you mentioned Decacorn or won't take your money.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Can you please?
So there are two like sort of two types, right? One is like sort of as I mentioned, right? This one is like when you start to do fundraise, you just set a super high valuation. This one is like you set up a relatively low valuation, but then you can have multiple growth. Yeah.
Oh, Decacorn is like 10x.
Not just 10x, it's a number like you. It's sort of like you jump from seed, pre-seed directly into Series B or Series D. There's a bunch of companies like this. They just raise a big chunk of money, and then it's basically that's it. Because like there are no other VCs or investors want to make further investment on top of the valuation because it's too high. You get my point, right? But this way is like you can have multiple stages, and it's more organic. And when you grow, at least you have more confidence to raise another round. But if you can see there's no product market fit, you don't need to force yourself to raise a super huge round, which you couldn't handle. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the nice presentation. I have a question about the founder journey in terms of, you mentioned some key points like you have to be mentally and healthy stable.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest and stressful thing about being a founder is like having the right team and people who see your same vision. So
Yeah.
I would love you to like kind of tell us how you went through that process, because I know it's a journey.
Yeah, I think it's really, as I mentioned, right, it's really important for you to find the co-founders which sort of you like or can fit into your team. So that's a part like, because like, to be honest, doing startup is pretty tough. If you really want to have some better upside on this kind of financial side, right, I would recommend you probably just go to some promising crypto companies and go early, and then at least you don't need to suffer so much. Because doing crypto, doing crypto startup, there's so much uncertainty. Like as I mentioned, because the narratives have changed like periodically. Like as I mentioned, right, risk taking was super hot like 2 years ago, and right now no one talking about. And similar to, for example, the BTC-Fi, the Babylon was super hot like even last year, but right now, just a bunch of BTC-Fi protocol launched their TGE, but it's barely people care about it. So that's why I mentioned if you want to, it's super difficult to stay relevant. And constantly you need to fight. It's basically you need to have your new ego and compete against your old ego. I mean, like you set up the narrative to hire your team, right? But after half a year or 1 year, basically, you probably need to build a new app or new direction. You have to convince your team to pivot. And some of them they want, some of them they don't want. So it's better at the beginning when you get your team members, your co-founder, you need to make sure like they are that kind of person who would like to go with you no matter what kind of direction you want to go for. Yeah. And why mentally, I mean, strong, because like it's pretty tough, to be honest. It's not like, like for example, if there's a new narrative or something new, right, you want to try, it's not just about yourself. Like you have to convince yourself. After that, you need to convince others. Yeah, it takes the time, and it's not just once or twice. Sometimes it can be multiple these kind of pivots. So it's so that's why like it's not like just physical. Physically, you need to do a lot of work overnight, but mentally, that's a part. It's I just feel like it's tougher. Yeah.
Just a follow-up question. So also there's another challenge where you get to have people telling you more new ideas that you need to incorporate in your, and you find that you have a lot of people telling you can try this,
Yeah.
this. How do you go about it?
That's a part like as a founder, you need to figure out like yourself. I mean, you need based on your experience and because you are the decision maker. As you mentioned, right, there's so many new opportunities and so many new ideas in the space. You have to choose the ones you feel like you can do and you have the expertise to do it. Yeah. And sometimes, like for example, you're building infrastructure, but you know like there's some good opportunities on some DeFi or exchange stuff. Do you want to try it out? Like probably you can try out, but your team don't have this capability to do it. Yeah. So that's a part like you have to make a decision yourself. Like what's the most sort of suitable ideas or direction you want to work on? There are a lot of compromise you need to make. So basically, you need to make decisions almost every few days. Yeah, that's a part like no one have the best answer, but you can do a lot of practice during this journey. Yeah. Yeah, he first.
So we're talking about what should be on the first page in terms of the pitch deck.
Yeah.
Right. Can you give an example, like what should be on the first front page?
You mean this one, right?
Yeah. You were talking about VCs and all the views. So immediately they see your pitch deck, the first page, they know whether to give you.
Yeah. To be honest, if you ask me this question, probably you need to think about like whether you should build this company or not. Yeah, because typically you should first have the idea what you want to build, and then you start the company. Otherwise, it's pretty tough. There's so many ideas floating here and there, but you need to figure out like what kind of things you want to build. Infrastructure, as I mentioned, right? Interop is a faster chain, or even like sort of some better wallet, all the things. There's so many these sort of high level ideas, but the thing is like you need to figure out like what kind of the specific problem you want to solve. Same to these DApp applications. There's so many new DeFi ideas or applications you can build, right? It's a new payment, new stable, new DEX, new spot, new perp, and which one you want to build and what's the new stuff you can have, right? These are the things you need to think about. I mean, if you don't have ideas, probably just don't start. Because once you start, it's a completely different journey, I would say. Yeah.
And then, can you also mention some of the like red flags, like in pitch decks?
That one, I think the other guys will cover, right? Kun will cover. But yeah, but as I mentioned, I think it's the red flags. I would say like just don't smoke investors. That's the first thing. Like don't think you are smarter than investors. Don't smoke them. If like something obvious, just don't smoke them. And the second thing, I mean, red flag. I think the other red flag is like transparency. Same. Don't hide the information. They have their own due diligence team, so they will always figure out, like, for example, who are your real team members. And for example, sometimes you want to get their investment, you say that, okay, we already got some oral commitment from another one. They will do a cross check. So still back to the first point, right? Don't smoke them. They will find ways, like sort of just to double check. Yeah, roughly like that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, what if the idea that you want to build is kind of similar to what someone is already doing, or you also want to build on the edge too, but in a slightly different way. How do you find ways to convince that this slightly different way is better, or is it just like situational thing?
You need to convince yourself first. I mean, if you feel like this slight difference will make a big change, I would say you need to convince yourself first. I mean, that means like sort of like, for example, the L2s, right? For me, all the different general purpose L2, they are the same. So what's your advantage? Do you have special distribution channels? Or you have a super strong BD team, or you have a super strong and sticky ecosystem builders? If you don't have, like, why you can be better than the others, you can just see like sort of all the rollups, right? I mean, all the general purpose rollups. There's so many. I think we already have a few hundred rollups already. But in the end, right now, which rollup is used the most is basically base. And for OP mainnet, it's not many users, and yeah, so that's a reality. So then when you build a style, you need to think, right? Okay, do you have more resources than them? And what are the unit distribution channel you have? Yeah, it's the same thing. So basically, I feel like right now, all the retailers and VCs start to realize, compared to this kind of narrative play, people want to see more this kind of product market fit play. So you have to solve some pinpoints in the market, or solve some concrete problems that people can see the real numbers. For example, your revenue, your TVL, and yeah. So basically, these very basic metrics right now play super crucial factors for some decision makings. Yeah.
Can you share how do VCs see the same exact products, like competitive products? Do they invest in both, or do they keep people on how they want?
It's case by case. Some VCs prefer putting money into all different protocols in the same sector. For example, Paradigm put money into the perpetual exchange on both Monad and Mega ETH. So, like, no one knows, like, sort of which one will win, right? Probably both of them don't win. I mean, but some of them just double down on just one protocol or one application. It's really case by case. I think before your pitch, you really need to know what kind of protocol application they already put money in. So you need to check out whether they already put money into your competitor. So in that case, like, probably the VC, you no need to talk to anymore. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to ask, how do VCs see building something infrastructure noticed that a lot of the projects that build infrastructure tend to raise more money
Yeah,
than those that build an application.
yeah, yeah.
So if you are building something, a real product for consumers,
Yeah.
how do you go about it? Is there any specific VCs you have to go to? Or
I think this situation has changed because right now even infrastructure very difficult to raise money because VC start to know that not many application can build on top of the new chains. The second thing is no matter you're building infra or this new app, the metrics they look at right now is mainly about the revenue and sort of the real users. If you have real users, no matter it's infra or app, basically you can easily get their investment. But without this number, you just say, okay, we are building something brand new, and with a pure narrative play, I just feel like it's pretty tough. Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone. Yeah, just reach out if you still have questions. Yeah, thank you.
Can you please share the slides?
Sure.
Wait, and also we have the live stream and the recording on the YouTube, and if you want to look at it,
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
Can still ask question? Oh, okay. Do you still have time? Okay.
Question.
Question.
You said, so no, I understand there's a kind of change in the dynamics. What are the few trends for product fit? What are the bets?
DeFi. I think right now, not just VC retails, there are protocols that can generate revenue. For example, the stablecoin because they have the yield, and then there's perpetual DEX, hyper liquidity, and all these crypto DEX. Yeah, that's also my observation. Beyond DeFi, I don't see any sort of new applications that get traction from VCs. You can just look at numbers, no one doing much activity on Ethereum right now. And you can just look at what kind of activities we have on chain. Obviously, these are the places people are using.
All right, thank you.
What's your take on gaming applications in the industry? Also take on